Okay. Well, we're really excited about getting back to work, putting one recruiting class to bed and having all of those guys for the future, and 6 of those guys will be practicing Friday. But your off-season program and now the start of your spring practice starts your new year. And you start finding out more about the personality of your team and the chemistry and the leadership and the toughness. And all of those things are so important, and they're not just givens. They're things that develop over time. We can say honestly that we've worked every morning at 6 in the morning in our off-season program, and not one person's even been late, and not one has missed anything. So, and they've worked very hard. So the attitude of the off-season has been really, really good and tough, and seemed to be refocused after finishing with the great win over Iowa, and hopefully some of that motivation is moving into the spring practice. The 6 guys that came in early have all participated in the off-season program, and they've done most of it. They've done very well. So, in fact, they look like they mix with the other guys really well. So we're excited about watching those guys come in, and I'm sure that they'll have a little anxiety tonight as they sit and try to sleep, thinking about having their first college football practice, and they're still seniors in high school tomorrow. So thank goodness it will be short for them, and we will be able to move forward as we go. A number of things that I will touch for you folks, and then I'll answer your questions. Like we said, the off-season program has been great. You start looking at the standard of success that we've had over the last 6 years for sure, but over 9 in general. We've all talked to the guys about earning the right to be on the Texas football team through your academic work and your off-season work and the way you practice and the way you play. You just don't get that right. You have to earn the right. So we've gone back to telling them a coach to coach here needs to coach at a certain standard, and we expect the same thing of the players. So we've asked them to make sure that everything they do is first class as we go forward. Leaders on the team are always unique. You won't know who they are until after spring practice. You can always look at a Drew Kelson, a Frank Ocam, a Derek Loki, Bobineau, Killebrew. There are quite a few guys have played. Rack's played enough now, Aaron Lewis, a lot of those guys on defense that have played up front. Not many of the guys have played in the back end, so you figure you'll have to grow with some chemistry and leadership back there. Marcus is really the only one that's played a significant amount. On offense, you start looking in that offensive line, and they're young. You've got Tony Hills and Dallas Griffin, who's played some, so you expect them to step up as leaders. Ulatowski did a good job last year, so we would expect some of the same of him. And you would hope Jermichael Finley now, after having such a great year, would be more confident. Lima Swede, Quan's older. A lot of those receivers. Billy Pittman's been around. Nate Jones has been around. So the receiving corps should help us, and Colt should be in much better position. Jamal has decided not to run track on the indoor part of it, as we've discussed, but he is going to consider running track after spring football's over. But he wanted to get stronger. He wanted to be around his teammates more, and he felt like we can run the ball better than we did last year, and he would like to be a guy that can get the ball in his hands more than he did last year. So to do that, he needs to get stronger and be able to fight through some of the injuries that were nagging injuries that kept him from maybe doing the things he needed to do. But leaders will be interesting as we go back through. Offensive philosophy. What we've got to do first is find a second and third team quarterback, because when Colt got hurt, we put Jevin in. We wished he'd had more playing time. He transferred, and now we've got to find a guy that can help us there. The two would be John Childs, and you start looking at he and Sherrod Harris are the two guys that will be working with the second unit. We really won't have a third guy, and you would figure Sherrod would be ahead because he's been with the offense for a summer and a fall, where John just got here. So, but that will be a a huge thing. Who will be the other back or other backs with Jamal? Who will continue to grow at fullback, trying to get an established offensive line in group with 5 guys and then work it to 7 and hopefully to 10, because we're really talking about the ability to get too deep. And then the receiver core is in good shape, but the same thing at tight end, finding that second team tight end. And that's really, really important. After we do that, we've got to continue to look at what Colt does best. And is it, are we going more under the center with some more eye? Are we going to stay what we did in the shotgun and keep people spread out? And so we'll make all those decisions based on what we see in the progress of spring practice. Defensively, right now we're in the process of there are a lot of talks with Coach McDuff and Coach Aquina and our defensive staff. And the real positive thing that we wanted is we kept a tremendous amount of continuity, because we are going to use the same numbers and the same schemes. So there will be a lot of knowledge. It'll be familiar to our players for the first time in 3 or 4 years, starting out in the spring, which is good. Also, Larry and Dwayne are very familiar with each other after coaching together for 10 years. The changes will come over spring. And if we ask ourselves right now, what will we do differently? Who will we be differently? Dwayne and Larry are going to coach at least the 8 days, and then we'll sit down and discuss what they see and have Larry's input into what he sees from the outside in. And then we'll do the same the last 7 before we start deciding who we think we may be in the fall. Also, changes on the defense. We're talking about Drew Kelson possibly playing safety. It may be one of those where he does both this spring. He has played both enough to let Larry look at him a little bit and also let Dwayne watch him and see how he does. Same thing on offense. James Henry on the first day will come over and play a little tailback. And we'll just see tailback, fullback. He'll play on the offensive side of the ball for the first 8 practice sessions, and we'll just again try to figure out where and what position one of those young guys could be playing. Cedric Dockery will not be in spring practice. He will be out there. He's working out, but they will not let him have contact. And John will get you all the other injuries later, but Derek Loki can participate in spring. He's had an amazing recovery. We'll just have to do a smart job of making sure he doesn't do too much, because he'll want to. And McElroy will be able to return for spring practice, and he should be full speed ahead. Jeremy Campbell and Myron Hardy are out of school for this semester, so they will not participate in spring drills, and we'll move forward with them later on. You start looking at the 6 early enrollees. We'll just have to figure out how they are in pads. The NCAA instituted the first 2 days in shorts, so guys like these could have an opportunity to get some fundamentals in their shoulder pads and move around and not be out there the first day and get hit in full pads. So they'll have the 2 days for the weekend, and then hopefully get them a little bit more prepared for the pads when we move on Monday. Questions?
You're not looking at any other players maybe to go what end of spring?
I'm sorry?
Any more players, possibility of switching over?
There might be, but we're not many. I might have missed one, Suzanne, but I think most of them there's 2 that are only significant. You know, you've got Antoine Cobb that's got to find his spot, so there's a few of those. He'll play fullback, tailback, first 8, or he'll start that way and then may move back, because we wanted Larry to get to look at what he's got and then add Antoine back if Larry felt the need to do that. But we just really feel like we need to stabilize our running back situation.
Is Bobineau going to move to fullback at all?
What he did last year at the end of the year for the bowl is he practiced down there for goal line and short yardage. We'd rather not but if we did, it would probably only be goal line short yardage. He and Loki both. And Derek probably won't play fullback this spring just because we want to get him 100% before he gets back out there, but we would like for him to do it in the fall.
What's the depth chart look like at running back behind Jamal?
Right now, you've got a number of guys, Ed, that can play both fullback, one back, and tailback. So it's a little bit confusing, but what you would have today would be Jamal and then a group of guys, Bondrell McGee being one, Chris Obanai playing both. You've got Antoine Cobb playing both, and now you've added the possibility of James Henry, and you've got the possibility of Ozzie Whitaker.
Matt, when you talk about Jamal finding ways to get him the ball, do you envision his role expanding, maybe getting out of the tailback some and flaring out into a Reggie Bush type role, or what were you talking about in terms of finding ways to get him the ball more?
No, I think just if we need him to touch the ball more and stay healthy doing it. At Iowa, he came out of the game with a hurt knee. Didn't think he was going to go back in. He goes back in, he catches a touchdown pass. Came back out and the knee was sore. I mean, we just, to get a guy the ball or touches of some kind 25 times is not hard. But you want to be able to make sure if you're going to practice all of those things that you're getting 25 touches in a game. And you can't come out with a sore shoulder and a sore elbow and a sore foot. No, you have got to stay in there and make it. So we have ways to get it to him, Chip, more than we just want him to get stronger and get more confidence and be in a position where he feels like he can be the ever down back.
Do you want him to bulk up or just get
stronger? No.
Can you talk about the situation with John Childs? Are you going to try him more quarterback first or rather than working at receiver some?
Yes, John as a junior was part-time quarterback, part-time receiver, and then moved to quarterback his senior year and played quarterback. When we were recruiting him early, he wanted to look at quarterback but play receiver. And he's so talented, he said, I want to get on the field immediately. Well, as good an athlete as Vince Young was, he didn't get on the field immediately. He had to wait and even redshirt and take his time and figure the quarterback position out. So at that time, we told John that you probably, if you want on the field immediately, it'll be receiver more than quarterback. So it may take you a little bit longer to get on the field at quarterback because of the learning curve. And then after he played quarterback all year, he came back in December and said, I would just like to try quarterback. That's what I want to be, and that's what I want to do. And it's my understanding, after his conversations with Greg Davis and myself, it's my understanding that right now he is a quarterback, period, and is going into spring to try to compete to get that second team spot.
You see, and this is early, but you've seen teams that have had extreme success have a freshman play sort of a combo role, a slash role, if you will. Do you envision that at all with him, where you have that, the possibility of two quarterbacks on the field?
I don't know. It has to work. There was a time here with two quarterbacks where some people in the room didn't think it was smart, and then when a team wins the national championship with it, they flip-flop and think it's the greatest. I was even talking about Chip. I wasn't even talking about you.
That's pretty good.
But now that we won all the games with two, I probably started that. I should probably get credit.
Were Vince and Chance on the field at the same time?
No. But what the question will be, Chip, it is a good question we've asked about. We actually had Quan prepared for 4 or 5 plays in the Alamo Bowl, and we didn't use them. And we had them prepared with Colt in the game. We were just going to shift Colt out and have Quan run them. So there's a possibility if you play John Childs at some receiver that he could do that in that role as well, or just substitute. But it is too early. We haven't seen him throw a ball or haven't seen him been on the field yet. So But those are the most exciting things about college football. Are every year's a different team. Every year changes. We've said this before, but you don't have Troy Aikman for 14 years. You can't have the same offense. You can't have the same defense. You've got to change with what you've got available, and that's the neatest thing about coaching college football. And this should be a fun spring because we talked about our deficiencies of experience on offense. We got one secondary guy that's really started very much at all, and that's Marcus. And he just started for 1 year. The rest of them are all puppies. And then you've got you got some new guys up front. You got some new linebackers that are exciting. So we've got a lot of fun things to look at, especially with competition and depth this spring, and then trying to figure out on both sides of the ball, can these young guys play man? Will we blitz as much? Will we have to play more zone because of them? Or do you play man because they're more athletic, but they haven't been out there as much, so they're not as ready to play zone? So we've got a lot of questions we've got to answer, and then a lot of kicking game questions. So it's we have a lot of things to get fixed that are really exciting right now. And what you said, Chip, is definitely one of them. I mean, it's Tebow last year opened some eyes because he was able to make some plays. Everybody griped about it until they saw they were going to win the national championship, and then it became the trend.
When you look at the running game, have you been able to sort of put your finger on why you weren't able to run it the way you wanted to towards the end of the season?
Well, when Colt got hurt, we quit running it with him, and that obviously lets people squeeze down on everybody else. So that hurt us without question. We didn't think that we blocked downfield as well as we did the year before. So there's some things there we think we can improve. But we gave it to everybody. Splits need to get bigger again. You got to break some tackles. You got to hang on to the ball, and explosive plays and turnovers are the difference in college football games. And if you're a back that can't get an explosive play and doesn't fumble, then or does fumble, then you shouldn't be playing. So we've got to go back and be real direct. But it wasn't throwing out the whole scheme. I don't. It's really not I or shotgun. It's really not people caught up with us without Vince. All the theories that are out there, it's really not. It's the Indianapolis Colts ran the same offense we're running, won the Super Bowl. So it's execution is what it is, and we didn't do it as well. So we've got to go back and really look at Colt running the ball in our part of the running quarterback running game, and that was a vital part of it with Vince. It was an interesting part of it with Colt early, and we wanted to build on it, and we just did not.
Were there some young guys during ball workouts that looked really good in those scrimmages between each other that you're really hoping carry that over to the spring?
Yeah, we didn't scrimmage as much this time. We scrimmaged each other more because we thought we had so much work to do, Jeff. But it's an exciting time to watch at least those three young linebackers. I mean, that'll be three really good-looking guys with Sergio, Jared Norton, and Muck McElroy, and you've got Dustin Ernest, who redshirted. So there's four young guys, three of which have played, one who hasn't. That'll be really fun to watch. I mean, those guys are big and fast, and they're good, aggressive type guys. Then you've got that Eddie Jones, Brian Ellis, Lamar Houston group that you'd like to see them do a better job coming off the corner now and see them grow up. So I think we'll have a lot of fun with those guys, but the most fun may be the secondary. I mean, there's some guys that are talented, but it's like Dwayne said I think when he had that Michael Huff and Cedric Griffin group, he said they're really exciting because we don't have any idea where they're going to go. And we saw that some, and we're back to that, I think. We've got a bunch of guys that can't wait to get out there, but there may be a lot of open guys tomorrow.
Coach, did Jamal come to you until he wasn't running, or did somebody else suggest to the coach?
No, Jamal came to us, and it wasn't, the way it was approached to me, it wasn't running as much as it was getting better in football. And he felt like that if he spent more time in the weight room and around the guys, because he made most of spring practice last year, that he would just be more focused on being a tougher running back that can stay healthy and fight through all this stuff. In fact, I told him, being an All-American in track, I would not give it up. If you're that good at something, you should do it. And I asked Jamal, Ken Rucker, and Jeff Madden, and Brian Davis even, who, because Jamal's grades have been really good, I asked them to go, Brian Davis just because he ran track at Iowa State, I asked them to go meet with Bubba Thornton to make sure that Bubba understood that from our standpoint, we thought he could get better in football and still run track as long as his grades were doing well. So I hope he goes back and runs track.
Coach, is Ryan Bailey the number one guy for extra point field goals, or what are you going to do about that?
Ed, he is, because he was there when we finished. Only we're reopening every position. But there'll be some guys who get in line first, and Ryan would do that because he hasn't missed a kick. But we feel like that again, with so many inexperienced guys, this is a great time to go back and say, everybody better get that position right, because we didn't finish like we wanted to. We finished the season, but not the end of the season like we wanted to. So it's time for us to go back and compete and earn that right to play again.
He's on full scholarship now, isn't he?
No, he's not.
He's not?
No.
How come?
Well, Ed, I really hadn't thought of it.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Just,
Most of our kickers that have walked on and only do one thing. He doesn't kick off. He doesn't punt. He just does extra point field goals. Most of the time what we've done is watch them through a period of time, and if they continue to do well, then you put them on scholarship.
I'm knocking you out. I just wondered.
Yeah. No, I didn't think you were knocking me out.
No, I'm not.
I thought it was kind of an off-the-wall question, but Ed, I've come to know Ed's yours are off the wall.
Stephen Bailey put you up to it?
No, Jeff Ward did.
Now, Jeff's always positive.
Drew and James, their position switches, did you go to them? Did they come to you? How did those go?
What we do is we always tell our guys that you have a right to look at another position if you want to. But you've got to get with us, and we're going to be honest with you. And right now, James has great film from his senior year in high school as a running back, but he broke his ankle. So we really didn't get to see him much of anything last year. And we're not sure what we think he's well. We think he's 100%. But since there are more opportunities right now following Jamal with question marks than there would be possibly at safety for a guy who didn't play last year, he wanted to try it, and we thought it would be a good change for him. Drew was a safety. We moved Drew to tailback. We moved Drew to linebacker. So if Drew wants to and can, and it fits our subtle changes with our scheme, then we think he's earned that right.
Is there anybody on the defensive side of the ball whose job is safe? I mean, one of the things that Dwayne and Larry both talked about a couple of weeks ago were that they really wanted the competition to be open across the board and just see who the best players were.
Yes, there's really not anyone safe anywhere, because you get in a position. If Vince had won the National Player of the Year and been coming back, we could say that, but it's, he's still, but he could get hurt, or, there's things. So what we've tried to do is tell guys, let's get at least 22 guys on each side of the ball that can play and start and compete. And at any time we can put one of those two in. The good part of that is it helps you with competition, it helps morale, it helps you with depth. The negative is it could cause complacency if a guy thinks I'm going to get to play just because I'm going to get to play. And then we tell them within that rotation of two deep, if you're not playing your part, then you'll lose plays. And if you're not doing it to the level that you should, you could not play at all. But all the guys, a guy can get too heavy from fall to spring, and he cannot be working as hard in the off-season program. So you can lose your right to play very easily. So he wouldn't do it. But if a guy like Quan walked out there and started dropping every ball, He loses his right for whatever reason. He's just nervous or loses his confidence. And so we do feel like that we're in a better shape right now. We've got a lot of depth, and we have fewer stars on this team than probably any we've had since we've been here. So there are a lot of talented young guys, but fewer stars. We will not have a lot of seniors. I think there's 15. And it's not a senior class that just jumps out and grabs you like the 8 that are at the NFL this weekend.
Matt, considering the lack of star power, for lack of a better word, on this team, is it kind of exciting to build this young group and get them to that level?
Well, it really is exciting. It's fun to go back and try to have your best team with maybe not your best personnel. And that's what we've talked to this team about, is let's make it a great team. And so far they've bought into that with no discipline problems and everybody on time and everybody working really hard and being so positive. In fact, when you talk to Coach McDuff, he was really shocked how hard they worked and what a positive attitude at 6 o'clock every morning they've had. So we do feel like that this, so far, to answer your question, Tim, this has been a real fun team to coach in the off season.
Matt, do you see Henry Melton buying into his position change or defensive end?
I do. He practiced there some, obviously, last spring. He practiced there exclusively in bowl practice. He and Oscar have a great relationship. Ray Crockett, his uncle, thought he should have been there from day one, and Henry wanted to play running back. It was his goal. Ray said, if you're going to be in the NFL, you need to be an end. So I really think that this is kind of new life for Henry, and he's starting over.
Does Kendall stay on offense for a little while? Because he practiced there during the bowl week at running back.
Sergio, well, I'm sorry, good question. What Sergio will do is take at least the first 8 days with Coach McDuff and not do any running back and let them get on the same page. And then I will take the possibility to look and see where we are at running back, where we are at big backs, how we are in short yards goal line, and then we'll look at some in the second part. We wanted to make sure that Coach McDuff and all the linebackers got to know each other well.
And then in the secondary, are you even going to have a depth chart?
Oh, no. We probably won't cross the board for a while.
Who would be the first 3 guys you put in there?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I mean, Dwayne's looking at possibly even packaging groups and not having a first group, just putting 4 guys together. And Eric Jackson's been around a little bit longer. If you look, the ones that have been around longer are Palmer, Foster, Eric Jackson, and Marcus Griffin. But then you've got a group of young guys that all need to be out there playing. So we will worry very little about who will be out there first for a while till we see through. And part of that is the reason we go 8 days and then take our break. There's a part that lets you get guys healthy if they sprain an ankle, but you also have a much better feel of who you are 8 days into this thing than you do today. Just because the young ones, you watch Shockey Brown, for instance, last fall, he was one of the ones that was really, really good in bowl practice. We were excited about him. Boy, just breaking on the ball. Brandon Foster got well. He made a huge jump during bowl practice. So you just don't know. It's a funny how they can change with a sprained ankle or a bad day. So trying to get that consistent attitude that can play really well. Deion Beasley grew up so much during the fall, even though he didn't play a lot. The playing helped him, we thought. So it'll be fun to watch him some. Robert Joseph separated his shoulder, didn't really get to play anymore, so it'll be fun to watch him run around out there. So, and then who knows what will happen with those 2 young ones.
So if you had to list your areas of question going into the spring, would it be secondary, offensive line, replacing Blaylock, Stutter, Sunline? How would you list
our problems? I would definitely list secondary offensive line as the 2 biggest concerns because of inexperience. We have good players, but we've got virtually no experience. You can say 2 starters back in the offensive line if Dockery won't be out there, so you could have 3. but Dockery and Ulatowski weren't starting at the same time. And then you could go to really one starter in the secondary. That's it. Now, your linebackers have been around, and you've got some young, exciting ones. Your defensive line and ends have been around. You got some young, exciting ones. And we're still searching at fullback to, if we do run more eye, what to do, and backup quarterback and backup tailback. So those are, and then you get into Aaron Ross returned virtually every punt. A lot of the same guys return the kickoffs, so we've lost our snapper. You'd like to see, based on Ed's question, you would like to see the kickers get into a really good kicking competition now. Hunter and you'd like to see Hunter get in that part with Ryan. And then also you got a new punter. So there's probably more new stuff on this football team right now than we've ever had, except our first year.
Did they change the rule on the kickoff to move it to the 30-yard line?
I think what they've done, and you all may have to help me, I'm just hearing things, John, they have proposed to take it to the Rules Committee to change.
Okay, so it's not
And that's kicking off from the 30. That's the clock not starting until somebody catches it, not kicking it off. And I thought basically the parts of the rules that our staff understood and read till we get the final rulings, we thought it was good, and that they were trying to give some plays back to the kids and still take some time away from the game. And we thought that was much better than last year's changes. So we're hoping that it'll be good. We don't want to lose 18 plays a game.
Is McDuff to be hands-on with the kickers?
Well, he and Tolly right now are still working all that out.
Okay.
Because we're looking at how that fits best, and we'll have another meeting in the morning to finalize some of those things before we go out on the field, and we may see, because I'm asking Larry and Tolly to just give an overview of the entire special teams and see if they've got some suggestions they think we should change.
And then Quan, a punt returner, kick returner, is Quan going to be the first guy you're going to look at?
Quan is the first punt returner, and Jordan Shipley, those two guys would be back there for sure. Dwayne usually keeps 5 or 6 guys back there to catch and goes from there.
Any young guys could do it?
Yeah, Dion, for sure, Shockey. Those guys can all catch. Bondrell might be a really good kickoff return guy.
Mack, obviously, he's just been here for a little time, but what's your sense of what Larry's going to bring to the team?
Larry brings a tremendous amount of confidence. He's got a lot of personality traits like Dick told me. A lot of integrity, very tough, demanding. He may be the most organized human being I've ever seen. He's you ask him to do something, he goes and does it and comes back and says, what else? And it's not one of those lack of time problems with time management at all. But he's always upbeat. He's really happy. Likes kids. And like after he met with the linebackers the first time, he walked into me and said, I know why you all win that. Those are really smart kids and really nice kids. And boy, they're excited about being here. And Larry's that way. He's excited about talking to every one of them and talking to the parents. And so I think he'll be a perfect fit for us. I'm really excited to watch him. Kirk?
Mack, how are you tinkering with the defensive scheme, because y'all are so good against the run almost all the year?
Kirk, we're looking at that, and it's the transition to something better than we were is even a little bit more difficult at this time because we're so young in the secondary. So do you go zone to take a little pressure off of them, maybe force more turnovers, but you can't get as much pressure up front unless you're getting it with the front four, or do you go zone read to do it? And the trouble is the young ones are really good man players. I mean, that's what we've tried to do is recruit corners that can play man. And we're seeing so many teams in our league now that have 4 and 5 wideouts at times that the old just zone won't work. You have to match up and play some man. So we felt like more than anything else, Kirk, the first month Larry was here, what we wanted him to do is learn the Texas defense, learn the names, learn the schemes, he and Dwayne will continue to work to grow on the philosophy changes, tweaks that they want, and we'll do that probably more after the first 8 days, because Larry's just a little overloaded, hadn't seen the players, hadn't been on the field, hadn't been on the college football field for 4 years. So he and Dwayne are going to work with that at the same time. We're going over our goals tomorrow for the start of spring practice. I don't have them here with me, I don't think, but what I did see one of them for the defense. The second one was work on trick plays, and I thought that was a good start. Work on trick plays. First one was one of those, make sure we get all the guys in the right positions and they're coached really well and they're sound fundamentally. Oh yeah, and then by the way, quit letting them throw it over your head.
Yeah, that'd be the biggest change going from Gene to Dwayne and Larry. You know, Gene was so intent on stopping the run, but obviously you have efficiency going.
Well, it's a tough thought, because if you don't stop the run, you don't win. Mm-hmm. And the ones that stop the run win. And what we'd like to do, obviously, Kirk, is do the same job of stopping the run and not give up as many big plays. Mm-hmm. That's the key. And we've gone back and looked at every one of our big plays, and we could have done a better job than we did. It wasn't just scheme. We put ourselves out there some, obviously, but we probably should do a better job of understanding what we're in when we're against somebody that can blister you so easily, and not put an Aaron Ross against Ted Ginn, or not put an Aaron Ross out there by himself every game, every play. Give him some relief, some with definitely a hard corner, a roll-up corner, and do some things that will take the pressure off there, and we can still stop the run.
Some of these DBs you had signed, you're looking for 1, 2, 3, 4 of those to help?
Coming in, the Curtis Brown and Ben Wells are here. Right. So obviously they'll have the better chance early to be seen. And Curtis will be a corner, and Ben will most likely be a safety. He could be a corner, but we're probably going to look at him at safety first. The other thing you have to do with a guy like Drew Kelson is he's a 220-pound guy that's played linebacker for 2 years. So you can't just flip him back to playing a wide receiver man-to-man in a 5 wide-out scheme and go all-man. You've got to figure out what Drew can do the best. So if you do move him to safety, everybody gets excited about those moves. Well, you got to make sure it fits. And that limits some of the things you can do if it's 4 or 5 corners back there playing too. So all of those things are things that we're looking at.
You said Dockery would go through he couldn't do the contact, but he did it, but y'all were anticipating he'd be okay by August.
Yes.
There's no complication.
Yes. No, and John will release you all the medical stuff after we get through.
Who are the first options at offensive line? The 2 guards.
What you've got is a group of guys. Like we're really excited about Dallas Griffin, and Dallas played well and played some of the year. In fact, John could tell you, I don't know if it's been public, but he's in graduate honors, business honors class right now with like a 3.9 something. He's just a brilliant young man. But if you take across the board today and just walk them out there, you would probably have Ulatowski, you'd have Dallas at center, and you would have Tony Hills at tackle. So that'd be your 2 tackles in your center. And then your inside guys would most likely, it would be a Dockery in the fall if he comes back and gets well. But it would be more, you would back up the tackle with a Jermarcus Webb. Brett Mitchell's got to fit in there somewhere. Roy Watts. The inside guys would be Buck Burnett at center. Then you've got Chris Hall and Charlie Tanner at guard, and Michael Huey coming in at guard. And make sure I didn't miss somebody. Be a mama mad first day.
Stephen Moore.
Stephen would be at guard. So he would be what you'd have is Stephen, and you're trying to get Chris Hall to play guard and center. You'd have Stephen Hall, Charlie Tanner, Huey, Chris Hall. All four of those, and Buck Burnett, because Buck could be a guard or a center as well. Yes, and that's the group.
So Britt Mitchell will be working with the offensive line.
Britt Mitchell will be working with the offensive line. We moved him there midway through the fall. He came in and he gained to about 280 pounds, and John will tell you he's got a sore foot starting the spring practice here. So, but overall, we're excited about his move.
And, Brian Ellis, is he a defensive end or a tackle?
We're trying to do a better job of getting guys that can play both. If you can play Brian Ellis, Greg Ellis, Ebenezer Ekubon, those guys got so they can play all four spots. And we feel like Brian could be a guy that could play all four spots. Lamar Houston could play all four spots. And then it helps you with your lack of depth sometime at defensive tackle. And you get four pass rushers on the field anyway. And if you're playing a Texas Tech, a Casey Hampton doesn't have as much of a spot in that game as he would playing Nebraska in the running game in the old days. So we are trying to get at least 8 pass rushers, and we feel like Brian can be one of those.
Who's the second tight end after Jim Murphy?
Well, you again are looking at different guys. You've got Peter Ullman, you've got Greg Smith. Both of them have had some knee issues. And then you've got the 3 young ones coming in.
But none of the young ones are now, right?
No, they're not in the 6.
You have high hopes for Aaron Lewis?
Yes. Aaron helps us so much. He's 270-something pounds. He can play tackle or he can play either end. And he's really athletic. So it's been when you can get a guy that can play a lot more places than one, like we said in recruiting, it really helps us.
All set?
Real quickly, you talked a lot about the young defensive guys and the talent there. Is it a stretch to say that this might be the best collection of young talent all together at one time at all positions?
That's more than a stretch.
That's why I said
that would be
a
absurd since they've never played. But let's look at this. Curtis Brown, Brandon Collins, Earl Thomas, Ben Wells, and Christian Scott. So 2 of those are here. Shockey Brown, Deion Beasley, Ishii, Edaway.
I was going to say, I pronounce his last name.
I was just talking about on defense with Sergio and Roderick McElroy and
I just think
Lamar Houston, all those guys.
I really just think it's too early.
Okay.
I want to see them play. Looking pretty and being fast is one thing. Football players are different, and the ones that play are the best.
So temper that enthusiasm a little bit.
Well, no, I think make them play.
Okay.
What happens in the NFL, I thought it happened some with our team this year. If you're not careful, a team sits around and listens to how good they are all the time, and the current team hadn't done anything, and they don't produce as well. Indianapolis got cussed all fall. They had the worst playoff games they've ever had, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl because their team pulled together and made the plays on defense and on offense at different times that they had to. It might not have been their best team. You go back to the New England teams, they weren't pretty. They just hung in there and won. Pittsburgh, same thing. Now, why were those teams not as good this year? Why do you look at a Pittsburgh? Why do you look at a Miami Heat? The next year they come back. Some of it has to be the fact that you're not quite as motivated for some reason. You're not as hungry. And I think anytime, one of the dangers I'm seeing in recruiting now more than ever is that the recruiting classes get over-publicized more than ever before. I'm the number 1 guy in the state. Who knows who's the number 1 guy in the state? And what does that mean? Does that mean my grades are good? Does that mean I got great character? Does that mean I'm a great team player? Or does that mean somebody chose me because I'm big and fast as the number one player in the state? And what does that mean for the college coach? Is he the number one player in the state 4 years from now? Or is he a bust? And if you're going to get bust, you ought to get little bitty bust. You shouldn't get big bust. Publicized bust are a lot worse than nobody knows bust. So then you have to bring these kids in, and now we start back over. And if one of these young defensive backs already says, Texas has had some great defensive backs, not good ones. And if this bunch is being told they're the best ever, and they haven't earned the right to be the best ever at Texas. And that's our big point for the spring. Just because you got recruited out of high school and had some stars next to your name, and just because you're at Texas on scholarship doesn't mean you're a great player at Texas on a great team. That's still out here to be determined. And that's what we're trying to approach with this entire bunch, is you have to earn the right to be a great player at the University of Texas. That doesn't just happen because you had stars next to your name.